and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Good evening.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. We thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoy another exciting episode of our show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. It's the six-man Dean Geronimo, and as always, from NJ to NC, I'm in the studio with my right-hand man, Mark Lee. So, Mark, tell me what's good in your neck of the woods, my brother.
Well, you know, I'm hanging in there watching a little bit of football, watching a little bit of basketball, of course, watching it all in that glass ceiling kind of environment and everything. Well, not glass ceiling, but that kind of bubble environment that they're playing in and all of that. So I was checking out that. I was glad to see that my fan of the team that I root for in baseball slipped into the playoffs, and I mean they slipped in because they got a losing record and they still managed to get the 8th seed. So the Milwaukee Brewers have slipped into the playoffs, got to play those mighty Dodgers. So I'm not overly optimistic, but, you know, stranger things have happened. You know, who knows? There's a lot of other things that are in that strange world that could happen as well. I know that we got an NBA Finals also. It's going to be the Lakers against Miami, and it seems like most folks are not giving Miami much of a shot at all, but I'm going to go ahead and try to root for Miami, because most folks are already saying that the Lakers are going to win and are already writing Miami off. But, I don't always believe in those things. And like I said, I've got some Marquette connections. That's the reason I root for Milwaukee Brewers, is because I learned about that baseball team when I was in Milwaukee going to school. And, there's a couple of Marquette guys that are playing for the Miami Heat, that being Jay Crowder and Jimmy Butler. So I'm going to say that they and some of their compadres can at least make it a series, and who knows, maybe even shock the world and knock them Lakers out. But like I said, I know that the odds are long against them, and I might actually be getting my first win in fantasy football. So that would be a wonderful thing. I told you I was 0-2 and everything, but I checked the score. I'm 68-38 right now, and of course we got Monday Night Football. But my defense, which is your mighty Ravens, has not played yet, so I'm hoping that they will do well. The only catch with fantasy football is that sometimes you got to root for and against yourself, because I've got the mighty Baltimore Ravens defense, and I think I got one of the receivers, Marquise Brown, but my opponent, who's down by 30 points, he's got Lamar, so he's got y'all's quarterback. So I'm hoping that, maybe like a low-scoring game, or my defense scores all the points, or something that gets me to maintain that 30, 40-point lead that I've got right now. So like I said, I'm going to kind of be pulling for your boys to definitely win, but I need them to win in the right way. Otherwise, I'll be down 0-3. And, 0-3 in fantasy football, in what could even be a shortened season, is not a good thing to be. You do not want to be 0-3. It's bad enough being 1-2. I know I don't want to be 0-3, so I'm going to do some serious rooting, some serious pulling one way or the other, and we'll see how this all plays out, because like I said, I know I am not trying to be 0-3. And speaking of O-N, I also saw that we've got our good buddy, and I'm being facetious when I say that, from D.C., that he's going to be trying to have a debate on tomorrow, and we're going to see how he holds up, even though there will be no audience for him to play to and all of that. So he's going to try to have a debate with Mr. Biden. I actually think he's going to get smoked in that debate, but that's just my opinion, and I've been proven wrong in some other things in life too, but I'm thinking he's going to get smoked in that debate, and I'm hoping he gets smoked in that debate, but we're going to find out how it all plays out, whether he gets smoked or whether something good happens on his way. But that's some of the things that are happening here. We had some rain that took place for a few days, and I know that my fine friends over at the Hayti Center, I did not make it to it, but they were doing one of those drive-in movie kind of deals, or drive-by movies, and they actually used one of my other places of employment, Measurement Incorporated, so they set up a big theater and had folks in their cars watching some movies. One of them was United Skates, which is about, the urban skate parks that used to exist back in the day. And then I think they showed a variety of shorts. So they're planning to do this, I think, on a fairly regular basis. So we'll see when the next one is, and maybe I'll make that one. I did not make this last one, but we'll see if I make the next one or not. And then, of course, me and Zach and everybody, we're always doing our shows on IBM.TV. So we had our celebration last weekend of Peace Day that I reflected on and remembered. And then this week there was a number of other occasions that were going on. My friend Jeff Eachin was actually doing a fundraiser for the folks over there in California. So that was a thing that was going on. So that was real interesting checking that out online, and it was definitely some devastating fires, and he had some musicians, including one that had lost his house, a young fella that had lost his house, but he still came and performed, and they were trying to raise money as well as also getting some of these people some equipment, because it was definitely for the musicians of the West Coast. So they were trying to get them some musical equipment. Some studios had been lost, a number of other things had been lost. So Jeff was definitely doing a great job, and I popped in maybe about 3 or 4 times in his Zoom fundraiser that he was also airing on the IBM.TV network. So definitely it was great engaging with some of these musicians, including some folks that I had never met. And then I had a little bit too much fun, Dean. You'll get a kick out of this. I had a little too much fun because what I did is I found filters, and you got filters on Zoom and things of that nature. So not on Jeff's party, but on my friends at the Pinhook. They were doing a Pride event, and they were doing some other events that they were doing, and that's been a long time club. So I went in there, popped in there, got my little chair dance on, and while I was doing my chair dance and grooving to the music that Gemini was playing, and I'm hoping to get Gemini on one of our shows in the near future, because she's definitely a very talented DJ, but I'm hoping to get her on. But while I was grooving to the music, I started putting on like funky glasses and barrettes and all kinds of other crazy things that you can do with those filters. I think I was even in one of those old transistor television sets at one point or another because, like I said, they made the mistake of sending me filters. I made the mistake of learning what these filters were and downloading them. So I was having a little bit too much fun on that particular Saturday night with those filters.
Okay. See, get beside yourself now with the filters. Gotta be careful, man. You're gonna spend all your time playing with the filters. You're gonna be like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah. So what's happening there in New Jersey? I think I heard a bell ring, and I'm expecting at least one, if not a couple of calls.
We got one standing by the door, man. Not too much is going on up here, man. We this weekend put together one of those 6-foot sheds, and now I know why I no longer do manual labor. It wasn't a problem putting it together, but man, as you get older, your body's telling you there's certain things that you can't do anymore. And you can try to do it, and you can actually do it, but you'll pay for it later. So now later is here, and I'm like, all right, well, that was my swan song on putting stuff together. I'll just go ahead and pay the extra money, and we'll go ahead and get somebody who specializes in putting things together and all of that stuff, and they can go ahead and make them a couple of dollars at the same time. So, other than that,
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Dean, because I can tell you that I have two projects that I was working on. One was to put together a shelf, and one of them was very easy to put together. I mean, it had like a couple of things that you had to put here and there, but it was not overly complicated. And that one I managed to get. So I've got like a a dresser drawer that's kind of like one of these put together dresser drawers that you can do with like very soft material, so it's not like a hard wood dresser drawer. So that I have built, and that I had no problem with. I did have to talk to one of my friends that's involved in like trying to give you advice and good counsel and all of that. So they gave me some advice to just kind of like go ahead and tackle it. And I tackled it, and it's in my room, and it's being used on occasion. Got some clothes and everything in it because that's what it's designed for. But there's another one that's made out of wood, and I can tell you right now that I'm looking at those pieces, and I've been looking at those pieces for about a month and a half, because it's not that easy as the other one was. The one was very much easy instructions, was no complications. This one got, all kinds of nails and screws, and, it's made of good solid wood. So that one is, like I said, I'm sitting here right now staring at a couple of the parts, and those parts have been leaning up on this desk for a while, and they haven't moved. And I don't know, unless they somehow get magic legs, I don't know that they're going to move, but I'm going to try to figure out a way to tackle it, or maybe I'll call one of my friends that's good at this stuff, and they can come over here and tackle it, because I know that several days in the past, I've been looking at this thing like, Mark, you need to go ahead and make this I think it's supposed to be a bookshelf. It's supposed to be a bookshelf or a cabinet. But either way, I'm looking at these pieces and I'm going like, nope, not happening. Not happening today. Not happening tomorrow. Don't know when it's going to happen, but it's not happening at this moment for exactly those reasons that you said. Sometimes things are a little bit more complicated than we think they are.
It sure is, man. Sure is. But you know what? We need to check out and see who's standing by and get the show started, you know what I mean? See who...
Sounds like a plan to me.
Who's coming to grace our presence this evening, and I guess we'll just do it like that, huh?
All right.
Thank you for calling Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. You are now on the line. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Yes, sir. My name is Velton Hodges. I'm calling from Sarasota, Florida.
Hey, Velton, I'm glad that Velton called. Velton is actually got a very much of a big-time celebrity friend and everything. So that's how I learned about Velton, because Velton has got this idea that we need to change certain things within the way that we do things. I think it's like the Pledge of Allegiance and all of that. But I know that, Dean, you say you're not that big of a sports fan, but you do occasionally follow ESPN. And, there's this guy that talks on the show all the time named Charles Barkley, and there's this other guy named Kenny Smith and all of that. But there's a third guy on there, sometimes he's the fourth guy, named Ernie Johnson. And Velton went to school with Ernie. And that's where I learned about Velton, because Ernie was talking about him on ESPN after one of those NBA games. And he was talking about how he had gotten this, seen this letter that Velton had written about some things that we should change, and one of them was the word respect, because I know that you're a big fan of respect as well, Dean. So I'm kind of like told half the story, but I'm going to let Velton tell it in his own words, because I probably totally messed up the story, but I want Velton to talk about his partnership with Ernie and how he got to know Ernie as a schoolmate. I think they might have even played sports together, and also how this letter came about.
All right, sir. Thank you. I appreciate the time and you guys wanted to hear me. Ernie was a walk-on freshman baseball player. I was in my senior year, 1975, University of Georgia. And Ernie came out and played, and we only played the 1 year together, obviously. My first thought when I saw Ernie was, if that kid ever grows into his feet, he's going to be a big old boy. And he weighed probably about 125 or 30 pounds. And he had not yet discovered the nutritional value of draft beer, which some of us, discovered early on. Ernie was a great kid, good ball player. I enjoyed spending the time with him. He's always been someone who's kept in touch with everybody. He's a fantastic family man. His story is incredible. His beating cancer, the whole 9 yards, and he's just as good a human being as you could possibly want to know. That's a fact. But like I said, we played the 1 year together. He actually went on a road trip at the end of my senior year. He doesn't know this, but I actually contributed to his going, because I told Coach Jim Watley, who was our coach at the time, and he retired the next year. I said, I'm trying to prep for finals and everything. I need to graduate. And I said, I really don't want to go on this last road trip. He said, well, what should I do? And I said, well, I think you should take Ernie. So Ernie got to go on about a 7 or 8 game road trip they normally would not have been able to go on. And the night before, or night they got back, I had to call everybody to find out details on the games, because I had professors who would ask me in class about the games, and I had come to Sarasota. So Ernie, we've kept in touch over the years, and again, he's just a tremendous human being, a remarkable man, and his family story is unreal, and he's just a good guy to know.
Sounds great. Now, talk to us a little bit about this letter that you wrote and everything, because like I said, when I was watching the show, and that's when I reached out to you, I was like, this is just fascinating, that it seems very simple, that what you're asking folks to do is to just change some very basic words that people say all the time, but we leave out some words, and that's kind of what Ernie was talking about, because it all came up in the context of the Black Lives Matter movement and things of that nature. So I would love to hear about your thoughts when you wrote this letter and how this letter came about. And then, of course, I'd also like to talk to you a little bit about your own political background, because I know that you've also been involved in the school system and have also been involved in kind of the electoral politics as well. But first, I'd love to hear this story as to what words you wanted to change, because it seems when I heard Ernie talk about that on the line, and I fortunately, personally don't know the man, but I've had some other celebrity friends and everything every once in a while. But I was just wondering, it just struck me. I was sitting there like, that seems so basic what he's asking folks to do, and it's something that we all should be doing anyway. It's kind of like when I hear people talking about the 3 principles of what we should do with the coronavirus, which is, keep socially distanced, wear the mask, and wash our hands, which, as Dean always talks about, we should have been washing our hands anyway. We should do that anyway all the time. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this came about and what you are proposing that folks do.
Well, like everybody else, I've just been sitting in my house quite a bit. I call this my pandemic pondering. And I started to think about the term white privilege. And I'm thinking to myself, what exactly does white privilege mean? And I'll be honest with you, I'm enjoying a comfortable retirement. I worked 34 years in the school system. I have a state pension. I'm on Social Security. My wife worked in the school system as well as an aide. So we have a couple pensions. We have Social Security. So we're not rich, but, we can pay our bills, and we can go see the grandkids when we want to. So I'm thinking to myself now, am I getting some type of privilege because of that, or is that a result of hard work? Because to me, the word privilege indicates something that maybe is special that you didn't necessarily earn. So So I kind of struggled with that. I was thinking about it, and I said, what exactly does that mean? Because I'm trying to get to the bottom. And when I get something on my head like that, I have to just kind of work through it. A couple of nights later, I had a typical aha moment. You won't believe this, but I'm watching television, and I'm watching Bob Hart's Abishola. Now, I've never seen the show before, but I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it has a white man and a Nigerian lady who's a nurse. She's a nurse in the hospital. They strike up a romantic relationship. They're out to dinner. A couple sitting next to them is staring at them. And Bob, she looks and says something, and Bob looks at the couple and says, it's okay, we're from California. Then she turns to Bob and says something, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but this was the gist of it. She said, do you see me as a black woman? He said, well, of course, you're black. She said, I know, but I never thought about it until I came to America. She looked at him and she said, do you think about you being a white man? He said, no, never. Boom, light went off in my head. A day or two later, I walked through the house and I'm watching I heard a PSA with a black female athlete, and she made the statement that we have to explain to our children that they may indeed be treated differently in the world. And that just confirmed what I'm saying. Also, I say light went off and I said, this is about respect. This is about society seeing me differently than it sees a black man. And that's what I put in the opinion piece that I wrote. I said, white privilege, it doesn't mean anything about your material goods, anything, where you live, what car you drive. It simply talks about societal expectations and the respect or lack of respect on a white man and a black man. And to me, it was just that simple. So then I'm struggling with, okay, I know what the problem is now. What kind of thing can I do to address it? Then I hear on a local news station that the Pledge of Allegiance is just celebrating its 128th birthday. Boom, there goes the light again. I said, perfect. So I said, at the end of the pledge, I want to add respect. So the pledge now, rather than say liberty and justice for all, it says liberty, justice, and respect for all. Just that simple. And I said, to me, that I don't know how anybody could argue with that. And in a nutshell, that's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's exactly what I offered. And I'm so tickled to death to hear that Ernie had actually talked about it and read part of it, because I didn't expect him to do that, but I really appreciated that he did. But that's what I'm talking about. Just simply, and being a former teacher, I've seen a teachable moment and you could build such a powerful message around that, because this is something you're teaching children. This is something that, if you could say, every time we recite the Pledge of Allegiance now, we're going to add the word respect. I just don't, for life, I don't know how anybody could disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody can disagree with that either. And it seems to me that, like I said, when I heard Ernie mention that on the TV show, I sit there going, like, that just seems like such a simple solution. And I'm sure that Dean, and I want Dean to jump into this conversation as well, would also agree with that as well, because Dean actually works in the prison system in New Jersey. And a lot of times that's what he has to deal with as well, is folks just trying to have respect, because he's actually involved as a lack of a better term, I guess you would be considered a corrections officer, Dean. So definitely talk about what Velton's talking about, because it seems to me that that's something that y'all have to deal with on a regular basis, is this notion of respect, even there in the prison system.
Well, I'm no longer in uniform, but I will say the respect is the underlying theme of any interaction that you have with law enforcement and that law enforcement has with members in the community. It is something that no one cares if you're having a bad day. No one cares if things are going wrong in your life. What it comes down to, when you open your mouth to, if you're the corrections officer, law enforcement officer, police officer, whoever it may be, it doesn't matter what's going on before this interaction takes place. As soon as this interaction starts, though, what you say determines how the other person may interpret or feel. On the opposite side of that, you have individuals that are coming in contact with law enforcement, and a lot of times they might be having a bad day. Their excuse would be, well, you should be trained to deal with that. But you know what? What you say next will dictate what happens next. So both sides need to learn to be cognizant of, you know what, I'm not feeling too good right now, but this person right here is maybe an initial conversation or whatever. You just came across that person, or maybe someone who you didn't quite get along with before, but you know what, this is a different conversation, so let me put on my adult clothes and let me have a conversation. If the conversation doesn't go well, then we can always agree to disagree and move on. I think pride, egos, and the wanting to be on top, wanting to have the last word, is a reason why some things go wrong. Now, you do have some individuals who that's just, they're always like that. And unfortunately, situations go wrong because they start out wrong. You know, so respect is a two-way street. And for anyone to think that it's supposed to be just a certain way lives in a fantasy land, man, because nothing is always going to go your way. Two, when things happen, if you are not able to discern that maybe this is not the conversation, maybe I do have to walk away. It's not saying I'm scared. It's just saying that I would rather talk to you another time, or we not ever speak on it again, rather than go back and forth with a situation where now someone is seriously injured, hurt, or, you know, we wasted all of that hot air and nothing got accomplished. So it takes work on, you know, both sides. And some people don't realize it, some people won't. And I think it's for the rest of us, instead of trying to fight them, to make them realize at some point you have to, you know, like the old folks used to say, recognize stupid when it shows up and be able to walk away from stupid and not get sucked into all of the extra.
And that actually brings up a good point that I'd like to hear Velton's talk on and everything about. Because one of the things that I've always admired, and like I said, I've been watching this show now for a while, and whenever I get a chance to watch it, but it seems to me that one of the things I respect about what Ernie does is that even if he disagrees with Charles or disagrees with Shaq, they do seem to have that nature of respect in their conversation and respect for each other. So it seems to me like y'all probably learned that together in whatever that high school was that y'all went to when y'all were in high school, and definitely in your college years and things of that nature. But it seems to me that he has truly mastered that. And unfortunately, I don't always see that from some of our so-called leaders, whether that's on the and I would say on both sides, the Democratic and the Republican side, as well as state and local levels, as well as national. So I think that you're very much onto something if we can just have engaging conversations and respect for each other. Because I know I always hear that phrase that, you know, I don't have to agree with you, and we can agree to disagree. But a lot of times I don't know that people necessarily buy into that the way that they should. So I'd love to hear your reflections on what I just said, because I do think that sometimes we get so caught up in that social media window and so much of that mindset, particularly those that are younger. And I'm, well, Dean's even younger than I am, but I'm in my late 50s. I think Dean's in his, mid 40s, Dean, or early 50s. But definitely, we're in the different age ranges, but definitely some of our folks that are in their 20s and 30s, I don't see enough of that kind of respect going on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Velton.
Well, I think everything you guys said is on point, but to me it's a much larger problem. To me, it's a societal problem. Society somehow, I mean, there's this cloud hanging over everybody, and it's a lack of respect. And it's just something that I'm not sure we can get rid of anytime soon, but we've got to start getting rid of it. I mean, and we have to see each other as Americans. We have to see each other as people and not see color first, and not come into a conversation or a confrontation or a dialogue with a preconceived notion of how that person is going to act or how that person is going to respond. And it doesn't cost anything to give someone respect. Now, if they get to a point where they no longer earn it or they no longer deserve it, then that's fine too. I understand that. And I don't expect to always be in a situation where, again, you agree with everybody or whatever. But again, I think it's just a much larger problem. I see it as something that just we have to we have to start trying to change, and it's a mindset. It's something that's baked into a lot of people, and I don't even know that they know it's there. But I think if they were to stop and think about it, they would realize that it is there. And, and again, the light would go off, and they say, you know what, that's right, because, I tend to look at someone differently whether I mean to or not. And to me, that's the problem we got to address. And, Ernie and Charles and Shaq, I love hearing those guys. I'm not a big basketball fan anymore, but I love watching those guys and listening to them. They have the respect of each other. They're good friends. I mean, and that's the way it ought to be. And professionals, ought to be able to get along with each other and do the job. But, again, I think it's just much more than just being able to get along with somebody. I just think it's a society problem, and it's just something that's hanging over us that I think we need to start to address somehow. Now, this may not be the answer. I don't claim to have the answer. I just claim to have the desire to try to address it. That's all. Maybe somebody comes up with something better. I'm all for that. I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm not hashtagging it. I am not websiting the damn thing. I'm not selling T-shirts. I don't care. I just think it's a problem. And when I get on something like this, I don't tend to let it go. I'm sorry. Anyway.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Belton, what are some of the things, if you could talk about, because teaching is also very important, and I know that we've got some folks that listen that are teachers. So what are some of the things that you learned as a teacher that you also try to pass on to people as well? I know that you're definitely very big on respect, but you're also probably very big on the importance of teaching. So as a former teacher, what are some of the great lessons that you learned as a teacher, and what kind of things would you pass on to others that are teaching now in terms of advice? Because there are a number of folks that are very much involved in the teaching field.
Our youngest daughter is a teacher in Hillsborough County in Tampa. She's trained as a classical pianist, and she's an elementary school music teacher. And when she got hired, I said, sweetheart, let me tell you this. This is one thing I always tried to live by in 34 years. Tomorrow is a brand new day. Today starts a new day. Do not carry over what a student may or may not have done from the day forward in terms of their behavior. Everybody starts fresh, okay? I said that was one thing that I always tried to impress upon her. Today's a new day when we start fresh. To me, the biggest problem with education today is, and it was when I was there too, please take your cell phones and go burn them somewhere. These kids can't write, they can't spell, they can't have a conversation. But they can sit there with their coat across their hands and they can text their friends and not even look at the keys, for heaven's sakes. And I mean, it's just one of those things that just drives me crazy. But in terms of schools, unfortunately, just my opinion now, but this is what my experience was. Schools, unfortunately, have become a place where there is a lack of respect for teachers. There's a lack of respect for administrators. Students tend to be able to bend the rules or ignore the rules. The rules bend, and it's just not like it should be, in my view. And unfortunately, I think the teaching profession, with the pandemic and everything else, is becoming more and more difficult. And so, quite frankly, I'm glad I'm not in it any longer. I know Ernie has a daughter who's a teacher in Georgia, and I told him, I said, I really admire today's teachers because they have it much, much tougher than I ever did, much tougher.
Yeah, I don't know how folks can even teach. Like you said, it's a digital age, and so many people are doing it on Zoom platforms. And I know for a fact, because I've got young nephews, that a lot of times they are probably not paying any attention to what the teacher is saying, and are being, like you said, distracted by a number of things that are in the household when they're supposed to be in the classroom. So there's no way that they can actually, unless the parents are on top of it, but a lot of times the parents are also involved with their own work. So it's hard for them to be both teacher and worker at the same time. So it sounds like a lot of our parents, unfortunately, are having to do almost 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. So I'm with you on that. I definitely think that it's very difficult for teachers to in this day and time and everything. So I don't know how they manage to do that. And I remember correctly, you were also involved, Lisa, to some degree, on the political side, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but it seems to me that you were also involved in some political roles and everything. How did you bring that to your work, and what advice would you give to others that want to go into that realm? Because I know that a number of folks, I've always been a big fan of the local elections and local offices. Like, I've got friends on the school board here in Durham and in our city council, and while I know a lot of people are engaged in the presidential politics, I oftentimes find that a lot of the day-to-day decisions that impact us the most are on that local level. So I was wondering if you could talk about your impact on the electoral system and some of your involvements in that.
Well, my biggest involvement actually came, I was the elected president of the teachers union for 12 years in Sarasota County. We had about 3,000 members, something like that, one of the largest in the country. And I did a lot of work in Tallahassee, legislation with governors, different governors. I was on the Education Standards Commission for the state of Florida. I was appointed by Governor Bob Martinez. I was reappointed by Governor Lawton Childs, one Republican, one Democrat. So, I did a lot only locally and at the state level in terms of that. My foray into the electoral process or the political process, I ran for the school board in 2014. I had been retired a few years, and the reason I ran for that was we had an open seat, and the school board had just removed the deputy sheriffs from our elementary schools, our SRO, school resource officers. And, I said, boy, that's the most vulnerable population we have, and I cannot believe you're going to remove the deputies from the elementary school. That was my whole thing. I said, I want the deputies back. And they said, well, we're going to use the money for mental health counseling. I said, you know what, that's probably the answer. But I don't want, until you do that, I said, I want to stop some crazy person from coming in here and shooting up this elementary school. I want a deterrent. I want a car sitting out there with a deputy sheriff, and I want them to know that there's a deputy sheriff on this campus. And I ran in a 4-man race, and if you think that school board races are supposed to be nonpartisan or nonpartisan, you're kidding yourself. The Republicans had a candidate, the Democrats had a candidate. They both spent over $80,000 for a $40,000 a year seat. We had a college professor. I came in fourth. I spent $2,008. $1,500 of it was to qualify, and I qualified on the last day. We had a college professor who ran third, and he sat next to me at a forum one day, and he said, I just spent $12,000 on TV ads. I said, why would you do that? I said, there's the Republican candidate, there's the Democrat candidate. I said, those are the parties sitting out there in the audience backing these two people. He said, well, it's supposed to be nonpartisan. I said, it's not. He goes, well, I wish you'd have told me that before I spent all that money. So he ended up third, and I ended up fourth. So I guess there's something to do with the amount of money you spend. I guess has something to do with it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it because it gave me an opportunity to go to all the editorial boards, all of the different clubs and civic organizations in town, and tell them exactly what I wanted to tell them, unfiltered, told them the truth. I got a lot of nice feedback for it, but again, I came in fourth. So that was my excursion into the political process in terms of the candidate.
And that definitely was a learning experience. I know a number of folks that have done that. My mom actually ran for Secretary of State many years ago, and actually the person that's currently our Secretary of State won that title because if Mom had won, she would have run against Richard Petty. But as it was, Elaine Marshall ran against Richard Petty, won against Richard Petty, the great NASCAR driver, and as far as I know, she still has the office. So, like I said, she's been in that office for a while, and we'll see whether she still maintains it. But, yeah, I remember Mom ran. But one of the things I remember that she always talked about was just what you alluded to, that there is a lot of political gamemanship, for lack of a better word, people making promises this way or that way and not necessarily always delivering what they claim that they want to deliver. So it even comes back to what you're talking about with respect. Sometimes I don't know that they respect the candidates as much as they should either when they give kind of these false promises or thoughts of things that they may want to deliver or not deliver. Because I don't know how it is in Florida, but I know here in North Carolina we have a lot of political action committees that influence the elections by basically handing folks the plaques of who they support, and then you're supposed to back those same people. But I've never been a overly big fan of that because I think everybody should do their own individual research. That seems to me like the lazy way of voting if you're just going to vote because in the case of Durham, we've got the People's Alliance, we've got a African American PAC, and there are a couple of other ones. But if if the People's Alliance hands you something and you're like, that's who you're supposed to vote for, but then you come up to them and you ask them, like, why did you vote for that person for soil commissioner or that person for mayor? And they're basically like, because they told me to. That does not seem very true essence of democracy to me.
Well, I got in trouble years ago, early on in my 10 years president of the union, because I re-registered everybody from Democrats to Republicans, which sounds odd for teachers union, but in Sarasota County at the time, there were partisan primaries, and the Democrats never fielded any school board candidates. So if we were going to vote, we had to vote as Republicans. And I remember the chairman of the Democrat Party came up to me one day, just jumped all over me, and I said, well, we did it so we can vote. I said, if you want to start running some candidates, we'll change over, we'll start voting for you. But again, they just, that's the way it was. I'll tell you this, though, talk about money. We had an incumbent school board member just this last election, just a few weeks ago. He spent $221,000 on his reelection campaign, and he lost. Now, who in their right mind is going to spend? I mean, there's something wrong with the system. If somebody's going to spend $221,000 to be elected to a school board, which he pays $45,000 a year or whatever. But I mean, that's just, to me, that is so out of whack. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to me like it's that you would be a proponent, and I know a lot of people have been, of campaign financing, because it seems to me like whether it's on a state level, a local level, and definitely on the national level, that some of these amounts of money that are being spent are, as you just put it, Velton, they seem to be ridiculously out of proportion to what you might actually make.
Yeah, and the gentleman who got beat and spent the $221,000, he's got a political PAC, and he's well known across the country in terms of funding some of the races. So, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You're supposed to be running as a citizen. You're supposed to be a citizen of government. You're supposed to be doing something you want to do for the betterment of the community and whatever. But I just don't understand why you would commit to that much money. Just I don't see the importance of the seat. I mean that just doesn't make any sense to me. But that's how it went down. So, but you're right. I would agree with there's some things we need to do. Campaign reform, finance reform will certainly be one of them.
Yeah, definitely need to do something with that and everything. And I know a lot of folks are also just fascinated by the amount of ways that folks are using social media. And I'm sure that when you did your campaign, you probably did not do that much with social media. And even with your Respect initiative and everything, you just said that you're not going to do a lot of hashtags and a lot of that. But what we're seeing on the national front on both sides is a lot of folks that are spending a lot of time on Twitter and Instagram and a number of other sources and everything. So what is your reflections on the way that current American politics are being handled as one that was a educator and things of that nature? So I'd just love to hear your reflections, Velton, on the way things are currently going in our current American political system.
Well, I guess I'm like everybody else. Well, first of all, I think we'd do everybody a favor if we had a national no device day and all of us had to just leave our devices at home and we had to actually go talk to people if we wanted to do something with them. But I think in terms of, I don't get into political conversations about who I'm going to vote for, but I will tell you who I will support. I will support whoever wins because that's the way I was raised and I have respect for the office. I just have two thoughts about it. One, I'm just disappointed as a citizen in the choice that we have to make, because I can't believe that in this country, how 350 million people, whatever it is, that those are the two candidates we get to pick from. That's number one. And number two, I fully expect in 2024 we'll have women at the top of the ticket, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So I don't know. It's frustrating. It seems like there's nothing positive being said about anybody or anything. Rather than try to. I have friends of mine, I have relatives who genuinely believe we're headed for a civil war, who think the unrest is coming. And I just refuse to believe that. I said, I just don't think we're going to get to that point. I just can't see that. I said, God, I hope you're wrong. And I hope somewhere there's going to be some statesmen stand up and say, hey, enough. Stop this. We're all in this together. We're Americans. We got to pull this thing together, and we need to move forward and get over it. I have always voted for the people that I thought were best qualified for the job. I voted for Republicans, Democrats, Independents. I've never looked at a straight party ticket. I've never done that. I've always tried to do the homework, and we always go to vote in person. And I always thank the poll workers for what they do. Now maybe that makes me, a dinosaur. I don't know, but I just think we're living in an age where we get everything we think we need to know in the palm of our hand, and nobody bothers to go check anything. Nobody bothers to go talk to anybody. Nobody bothers to have a civil conversation about anything. And it's all about emotions and everything else. And he said this and he did that, whatever. I'm just afraid that we're not in a real good place, and I hope it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I hope that we will get in a better place, and I would also not have any problem with a woman being at the top of the ticket, and I think that that could be a wonderful thing. I'm also a little bit worried right now about the state of the elections with the mail-in voting. I mean, I understand it with the pandemic. That's probably the way that things are going to have to go and everything, but at the same time, I'm a little nervous about that as well. But then on the flip side of that, I actually think that, as I know some other countries do, because one of the things that I've had the pleasure of through another one of the networks I'm involved with, meeting people from like Australia and India and Afghanistan and even some other parts of the world. And I know that some of these places have mandatory voting. So it seems to me that that should be something, even come back to respect, that we probably should do. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts? Do you think that, are you a fan of mail-in voting, and do you think that we should have mandatory voting? You've been involved in education for a while, and I'm sure you taught civics or some other courses along those lines. So I was wondering to know your thoughts on whether that's something we should even consider.
I don't know that we could go far enough to say mandatory voting. I don't know how you would enforce that or what the penalty would be. I think if you go at it from the other side and say, here's why you need to participate in the election, and here's what you need to do as your civic duty, and try to approach it from that angle. I just don't think mandates work well with the American people. I think you've seen that with the whole pandemic deal. I think people are to the point where, they're just kind of over it, and they're tired of being told what to do and what not to do. So I think that's part of it. I don't know. I just hope that, again, that we get to a spot. I think you can. I don't have a problem not to go vote in person. But the reason I say that is, I can go to any store I want to go to here in town. I can go to restaurants. Of course, we're trying to wear masks, and the populace seem to be doing a pretty good job of that. But if I can go out to Walmart or Home Depot or my restaurant that we go to, I can certainly go vote in person. Plus, they have so many early voting days that it's not. My wife and I will go the first weekend that the polls are open, the early voting. And we will typically go on a Sunday afternoon, walk in, and we might sometimes be the only people there. So I just don't see any reason why you can't vote in person. Absentee ballots, yes, I understand absentee ballots. I have no problem with that. Total mail-in ballots I have an issue with because I just don't know how you're going to control that. And it's too easy for one side or the other to cast doubt on the validity of it. But again, I don't see why you can't just go vote in person like everybody. I mean, I think you can make the argument that early voting shouldn't be held because sometimes there's things that happen when early voting starts, between early voting and election day, that might cause you to change your vote. But if you voted early, you're done. So I don't know. I think we sometimes fix things when they don't need fixing, or at least we think we're fixing them. And I think that's probably what we've done. But I tell you, it was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around the whole pandemic and the closing thing because, I'm a little older than you guys, and I've lived through all those other pandemics and epidemics and never closed anything down. And then when they had the bars and the golf courses open here, I said, it's a little hard to take that serious when you got the bars and the golf courses open. So I don't know. That's kind of I would like for somebody just to stop and say, let's step back and take a look at this thing, and let's not fix it if it isn't broken. I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just changing the topic and everything a little bit, for those folks that are never been to Sarasota and you're in Sarasota, Florida and everything, what would you say is like the highlight of being in Sarasota that if somebody was to come visit your state as well as your city, they should come and check out? Like I said, I've been to other parts of Florida. I can honestly say I have not been to Sarasota yet, but if they would come visit your part of the world, what would be the things that they should come down and check out whenever we get back to normal travel? And actually, I heard from a good friend of mine who does a travel show that he actually thinks that that's going to be the next thing that happens is folks start doing the old-fashioned American road trip. So they will start traveling around the country because they can't necessarily travel across the globe. So that's his theory, that we'll start seeing more of those great American road trips. So if they were to road trip down to Sarasota, what should they see other than those beautiful beaches of y'all's?
Well, Sarasota is a long-time circus community. This is where Ringling Brothers was based. You've got the Circus Museum. You've got a lot of cultural things. You've got a lot of art stuff. We have a very heavy arts community. They do a lot of different shows and things. But again, I guess is obviously known for the beaches. Siesta Key has been rated the number one beach in the world for 2 or 3 different times. And to be honest with you, if you go out there, the sand is like talcum powder. I mean, it's just unlike any sand you've ever seen in your life. And I've grown up here. I've lived here all my life. And we have some other things now. Out on the interstate, we have a Olympic-sized rowing facility where we've actually had world rowing championships out there the last 2 or 3 years, and college championships and what have you. So there's a wide variety of things, from art museums, circus museums, shopping out on the beach, the beaches themselves. And again, you've got the spring training baseball, which didn't happen this year, obviously. And, again, the world-class rowing out here. So we've got a lot of stuff, and it's a nice place to come. Come spend your tax money and go home. Because it's getting overpopulated.
Come down, visit, and then get the heck and head back to your home area is your suggestion, huh?
Yeah, because it's getting overpopulated. Again, like I said, I'm growing up here, and sometimes I will drive down streets and I go, when in the world, when did that get built, So it's just amazing, the number of stuff that's going up, the buildings and things. But it's a nice
we see that same thing. Yeah, we see that same thing here in Durham because, like I said, it's Durham, North Carolina. Before the pandemic, we were seeing growth happening up left and right, and I can honestly say that I'm still seeing people constructing things on a regular basis, even during the pandemic. So, yeah, definitely I know about that overgrowth of an area because we're considered the Research Triangle Park, and there's definitely been a lot of growth around Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. So definitely know about how that growth can impact a society or a city, and I've seen that even here as well. So I'm familiar with that idea of too many folks coming in, because I know that we've also gotten a lot of folks that have started to move down to the North Carolina area from like up north and other places. So I know we've been listed as one of the fastest growing regions and everything. So I know about how that fast growing can be both a benefit and a detriment. So Dean, are you ready to head down and move to Sarasota?
Not for me. I'm not too hot, too warm. The storms and all of that stuff, not for me, man.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's usually not the heat; it's the humidity, but it's the same difference. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, you got a point there. That's for sure. That's for sure.
So you got that. Go ahead. What do you say about this?
I worked one summer in a program in Macon, Georgia, Wesleyan College, and talk about hot in Florida, but we had 21 straight days over 100 degrees in Macon, Georgia that summer. So it's summertime. It's hot everywhere. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got some friends that live in Vegas and work in Arizona, and when they talk about how hot it is in the Vegas, Arizona area, I'm sitting there going like, yeah, this is much too hot for me. And I went out and visited them one time, and that was around Christmas time, and it was still hot around Christmas. So I'm with y'all on the if things are a little bit too hot, then it's a bad thing. But I will give credit to Sarasota, at least having the beaches. I haven't, like I said, I've not been down there, but I have been to Miami, worked briefly at a newspaper in Boca Raton, and I've visited Orlando. So I've been to like the middle of Florida and the southern end of Florida. That's one of the other things that always fascinates me about Florida, and I was wondering, as one that grew up there, has it always been that way? Because to me, it seems that Florida is basically almost like 3 or 4 states in one. Because like I said, I know the same can be said to some people of North Carolina, but if you're in southern Florida, like around Miami, that seems to be a whole different culture than, say, Orlando, and I would imagine that's different than Sarasota and much different than Jacksonville. So as one that grew up in Florida, is that what you've observed as well, Velton? Because definitely you've been there for decades now. So is that something that you've also paid attention to and noticed as well? That it seems to be at least 5 different demographic communities in those different city enclaves.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. You've got South Florida, you've got Central Florida, you have the Panhandle, Jacksonville area, Tampa area. I mean, and it's all either Midwest or the Northeast or what have you. I mean, the folks from those regions tend to congregate in one area or the other, and they all seem to be the same in the same place. But yeah, that's absolutely true. No question about that. Absolutely.
No doubt. And the other thing we've noticed about Florida is that, and I know you don't want to talk politics, but you don't have to go there, but it does seem like it's going to be a swing state. So no matter which way folks decide to vote, it looks like y'all are going to play a pivotal role. I know North Carolina is going to play a pivotal role as well, and probably some of the Midwest states like Milwaukee, or Wisconsin, I should say, Wisconsin and a number of others. But it definitely seems like y'all are going to be a pivotal state in deciding which way the election goes, one way or the other.
I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but I will tell you the sense that I have is that every year we're becoming more and more liberal as a state. And I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't know how it's going to manifest itself, but that's just the sense I get. Newspapers seem to be getting more liberal. Politicians seem to be, people running for office and that kind of thing. And again, it just seems to be that's the direction we're headed. And I think that's probably influence from up north or whatever, that kind of thing. But it used to be, well, for example, Sarasota County when I grew up, if you weren't a Republican, you didn't even bother running for office. And we had a Republican sheriff, I think, for like 40 years before anybody ever even challenged that position kind of thing. So, and it was like that in a lot of places. But it's not like that anymore, that's for sure.
So we are seeing changes even in the way that state is having its demographics change. So it sounds like it's becoming switch from one party to another, and that could influence the way that things happen and everything. So you said that you wrote that letter. What when you sent the letter, what was your reaction of the newspaper? Like I said, I was glad that Ernie brought it up, and I was definitely glad to bring you onto this platform as well. But what was the reaction of the newspaper community when you sent them that letter? Or are they used to Velton writing letters all the time?
Well, I don't write all the time. I've written a few over the years, but I have not written that many. But we have a brand new editorial page editor. But I did know the lady. I had a relationship with her. Well, I knew her. I also have a relationship with her, but I knew her. And the fellow who had the job before that, I was good friends with. I knew him for years. So I had a little easier time with him. She wrote me back when I sent it to her and said, would you please consider running this as a guest column? Now, when I do something like this, I get it in my head. I will write it in my head over the course of 2 or 3 days. Then I'll sit down and boom, I'll put it on paper. Then I will send it to a friend of mine who has a better grasp of the English language than I do and have them proofread it because apparently I was absent on apostrophe day and comma day. But I don't recall that, but apparently so. So I get somebody to proofread it, and then I send it to the newspaper. She writes me back the next day, this is nice. And then that's all she said. And I go, well, I'm not sure what that means. Okay, this is nice. What are you going to do with it? So about a week later, I had just about given up on it. About a week later, she wrote me back and said, it'll be in tomorrow's paper. I said, okay, great, thank you. And like I say, I've sent it out to my daughters. I have our oldest daughter lives in Sefner. She's actually an animal keeper at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Our youngest daughter is an elementary music teacher. She lives in Plant City. They both put it on their Facebook page. I have two of the other people put it on Facebook. But, again, I don't know what else to do with it. And, again, I'm not actively trying to push it, but I'm hoping that it gets pushed. And that's why I was so tickled that you would offer me a chance to talk about it because, again, I want something done. And if I fail, it's okay, but at least I gave it a shot. But I just don't see how anybody could disagree with adding the word respect to the pledge. I
don't know how anybody could disagree with that as well. I think Dean would be all right with adding the word respect to the pledge. What do you think, Dean? Are you ready to add respect to the Pledge of Allegiance? Dean disappeared on me.
I don't know where you would put it. In fact, it says Pledge Allegiance to the flag, right?
Right.
And you know what? One nation under God, indivisible. Where you go?
Liberty, justice, and respect for all.
Okay.
Yeah, with liberty, justice, and respect for all. That's where I would put it.
Okay. It might work.
Yeah, I can see that work. It's definitely can see that work. And so definitely we can add respect. And like I said, don't have to get rid of any words because I don't think that because that's one thing that I was a little confused with what Ernie was talking about. It sounds like all the words would be the same, or is there something that you're going to get rid of within the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, it'd all be the same. Actually, see, the pledge has changed over the years. It's changed 2 or 3 different times. The last time it changed was 1954 when they added the words under God. So I'm not taking anything else. All I'm doing at the end of it is adding respect. So rather than saying one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, I would simply say with liberty, justice, and respect for all. So I'm just adding the one word. Is all I'm proposing.
Well, that sounds like it's a very simple proposal and everything, but you just caught me off guard with something you said. So I know that this country was founded as a, has those Puritan principles and definitely has like these kind of like notions of us being a Judeo-Christian country and everything. You just said, if I heard you correctly, that they just added the under God part in the 50s? Because I've thought that was always there.
No, 1954 was added. I think President Eisenhower endorsed it. I think it had something to do with the. I may have gotten this totally wrong. I don't remember exactly. But I think it had something to do with the communist scare going on at the time, that kind of a thing. And there was some reason for it, but it was added in 1954.
And it was during the time of the. So that was during the time of our Cold War with the Russians, or there shortly after World War II, and we were in the middle of the Cold War period with the Russians, is when they decided to add the whole concept of under God within the conversation.
Now, again, I just talking, I may have that totally wrong, but I do know Eisenhower was the one who approved it. Went through an act of Congress or something, or a resolution by Congress or whatever. And I don't know how you would actually change it now or add something to it. I don't know, executive order, act of Congress, the states can just do it. I don't know. So, I did send a copy of it to my school board, but I've gotten absolutely no response from them. So, I don't know how to take that. But, I'm not the most popular person down there because they didn't appreciate some of the things I said about it when I was running for office. So, I don't know. But it was just the truth. So, that's okay too, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be something very simple for folks to do, and it sounds like it should be something that we should have been doing all along. So definitely it sounds like it's a very viable process, and like you said, it's just a matter of us trying to figure out. So I guess it would either have to be by, as you said, either an executive order or maybe we'd have to do like a constitutional amendment, but those can be like a real mess, because I remember when they tried to do the ERA as a constitutional amendment, and that still hasn't been approved. So like I said, I know that constitutional amendments can take forever.
Well, and I don't think it was. I don't think it took that last time when they added under God. I think it was just simply. Can you imagine, though? To me, this is what I think would be powerful. Because suddenly we decided that we're going to add that word, and then it's not recited every day in every school. I understand that, but every time and every place that the pledge is recited, before they do it, say, please stand and do the pledge of allegiance to the flag. And we are added the new word respect, and have something to say about it, and do that. And I can just imagine as a teacher, the powerful lesson you could build around that. The origin of the pledge, why it came about, how it's been changed over the years, and how it's been changed to add the word respect, and why. What's going on in this country, or what went on in this country at the time to cause that to be considered and cause that to be changed. And I just think you got to start somewhere, and I don't think that whole thing I was talking about earlier about society and lack of respect, I don't think that's ever going to go away in my lifetime. But I think if we get started on it, maybe one of these days we will see each other as Americans, and we won't see color first, and we won't have these preconceived notions about how you might act or I might act or whatever, And I don't know, it's ramblings of an old man, but what you going to do, As I said, pondering.
No, it sounds like a good theory. It sounds like something that they should definitely be considering on a regular basis. So folks are watching and listening, and they want to learn about ways that they can help you with this. Like I said, you've already said that you're not going to do the hashtags and all of that. But if folks wanted to take the ball and run with it, what kind of how would they reach you, or how would they go about helping you get the ball rolling? I guess is the next question I was asking, is how they would help you get the ball rolling. Should we be able to get this ball rolling one way or the other?
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, they can reach me at Velton, VELTONH, at Verizon.net.
So VeltonH at Verizon.net.
VeltonH at Verizon.net. Yeah.
So hopefully folks will be watching or listening, I should say, and they can find ways that they can reach you and definitely make this cause happen. It definitely sounds like a worthwhile cause and everything along those lines. One of the things that I oftentimes talk about on the show in general, and it's all the show platforms that I do, is all that we're going through, whether it's the political unrest, whether it's the social unrest that you just talked about, that is part of the reason that we need this kind of respect in everything, whether it's what we're going through in the pandemic or a number of other things that are happening in our society. What kind of words of advice would you give to folks that are just dealing with life in general? So that's one of the things I always let my guests on all the platforms that I talk about give words of advice and also words of encouragement. So what words of advice and what words of encouragement would you give to folks that are listening that might want to hear from you and reflect on what you've got to say? Because I've always been a fan of the advice that we get from those that might be considered our elders.
I don't know how to take that, but thank you.
It was a compliment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My advice is it will all pass. And if you need help, ask for help and talk to people. That would be the most important thing, I think. Have a conversation with someone, talk to someone. You need help, ask for help. If you can give someone help, give them help, and do the things that, good, honest human beings, charitable human beings would do. Quick story. My brother lives in Alabama. The hurricane just went through there. He has property north of Pensacola. The road was washed out. He had to walk to his property. He's fortunate enough to have another home his wife owned in Tuscaloosa. He left to go up there, but he said, "Well, there's 4 families marooned past me, and they can't get anywhere because the road is out and the bridge is out, and there's no way to fix it." So he gave them every generator that he had. He gave them gallons of gas. He gave them every COVID food storage that he had stocked up for the pandemic. He gave them everything he had and said, "Here." And he said, "You run out of gas," he said, "siphon it out of the RV or the truck." And he said, "They're marooned." But, that's the guy said, "Well, God love you, man." And that's the kind of thing we need to do for each other, and stop arguing about I guess what I would say is this: stop trying to fix the blame and let's start trying to fix the problem. That to me says it all. We spend so much time trying to fix the blame, we don't bother trying to fix the problem.
You bring up a good point, and a lot of times we do that, and also a lot of times one of the things I've always admired about the folks that are your friends on ESPN, as well as a couple of other athletes that I admire, like LeBron James and others, is that they seem to be trying to, as you just put it, they're trying to find solutions and not just putting it as just a problem that doesn't have any solution. So they seem to be very much engaged in community involvement. I get the impression, like I said, you're fortunate to talk to them and to email them and, talk to them on the phone and everything every once in a while. But it seems to me that they are actually very much engaged in their community and not just what we see on TV, but that they actually are very much involved in the world in their local communities as well as what they're doing nationally. So that's my perception of them, is just one from the outside watching them and everything. But like I said, you talk to Ernie on a fairly regular basis. Is that a correct assumption of mine? Because it seems to me that he and Charles and them are all very much engaged in trying to figure out solutions.
Absolutely. And I think, one other thing I always think about is if you're going to be part of the problem, you got to be willing to be part of the solution. And every problem can be solved. And I think those guys are a good example of that. I think get to talk to them, and you even hear on the air sometimes when they're talking about different things. Like I think Charles said the other night about the defunding police. He goes, "Well, who black folks going to call? Ghostbusters? Come on." And so to me that's a common sense kind of a thing. We don't need to defund the police. We need police reform, and I think that's the kind of conversation that people need to have. And go from there, and I think that's probably what he was talking about. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I've got some friends that are part of the quote-unquote defund the police movement here, but actually I think that they would even agree that it's probably a term that was miscommunicated and misused, because most of them are actually talking about what you're talking about, which is reforming the police, meaning getting rid of some of the bad apples, definitely not having to necessarily always have the high-tech super militarized kind of weapons and things of that nature. So I think a lot of it is more about just trying to have more effective policing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're defunding them. It just means that you're trying to allocate those resources in a more effective means?
There's two things that I would do if I were king for a day. Number one, I'd add respect to the pledge. Number two, I would immediately seek a national commission on police reform. And I would say, okay, now here's what I want you to look at. I'm going to give you 6 months to do this. I make sure every stakeholder was involved. And I'd say, I want to know what the common denominators are in these. And I'm not talking about black suspects and white cops. I'm talking about, was it a traffic stop? Was it a warrant, serving a warrant? Was it a restraint? Whatever it is, let's find out what the problems are. And then as people who have stakeholders in this whole situation, come up with practical solutions, come up with recommendations to solve these problems. Let's put a national commission together to look at police reform, something along the lines of the Warren Commission that has some teeth, and say, okay, police departments, here are the new guidelines, here are the new recommendations, here's the things you're going to do from now on. And and make it a positive. You can solve the problem, but you can't solve it by blowing it up or just ignoring it. But, I mean, to me, if I had two things I could do tomorrow, that's the two things I would do.
So, Dean, what do you think? We're involved in corrections, still involved in corrections. You think we need a Warren Commission for police reform? And I agree that we probably do need some sort of police reform, but I'd love to hear your reflections on what Belton is talking about.
You don't need a commission. You need to get rid of qualified immunity. As soon as you do that, a lot of officers who serve with honor and integrity do not have to worry about if there is or if there is not a qualified immunity. But once you take away that protection for those officers that decide to do what they want to do, and they are outright just punished for the the things they do, absence of thought, a lot of things will change.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense that we could do that if we could just have that qualified immunity. And actually, that came up in one of the streaming conversations because one of my people that was on that show was talking about qualified immunity as well. As a matter of fact, he couldn't come up with the term, but then he remembered it later on and everything. But that's actually what he was referring to as well. So definitely, I think that those are some great ideas. Belton, if you have any other things that you're going to write editorials about in the near future, what are some of those ideas that you're thinking about? You definitely talked about the police reform, and of course, you've gotten a little bit of traction with me and Ernie with the thing about respect. But what are some of the other things that are percolating in that brain of yours as you are now retired that you are thinking about? You might want to put pen to paper and talk about and try to get folks' attention with writing them first as an editorial in Sarasota, and then maybe somebody like Ernie or myself will grab it and carry it on to another national or international platform. So what are some of the things that you are thinking about that you are concerned about in addition to adding respect and the police reforms that you might decide to go tackle in some of your writings? And by the way, do you write these letters at midnight, or do you wake up at first thing in the morning? Do you talk about it with your wife, or how do these things come about?
To be honest with you, as I say, I will, I get on something and I'll start thinking about it. I will actually write it in my head. And then at some point in time, I'll sit down and put it on paper. And it could be any time of day or night. I have gone to bed and I haven't written one before, but that's usually not, doesn't come out the best usually. But I don't know. The newspaper is a little bit restrictive in terms of how many times it will run something from you. If you're not on the staff, so I probably couldn't get anything in there anytime soon. But I'm just concerned to see what the tone and tenor of the country is once the election is upon us, and just see how the whole thing plays out and see how everybody reacts. And I'm concerned about that. And if I could write something to help that, I certainly would do it. I just at this point in time don't know what it would be, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I know that that's been a concern about people definitely in society is the, as you said, the tone of the conversation. And I've heard that from other people as well, that they are concerned that there might be these tensions blowing up and growing even more and more. And I've heard people speculate about all kinds of things, ranging from what you just talked about, which is some sort of cultural or race war, on to like some folks threatening to move, depending on if one candidate wins or another candidate wins. Because I think it's on both sides that I've heard people that have contemplated moving. But I kind of agree with what you're saying, Belton, that at the end of the day, we're all born here in America and are definitely American citizens. So even though it sounds good in theory that you might want to move to Brazil or Australia, I don't know that they're going to be that much better off. And in some cases, they might be worse off in the ways that they treat their citizens and everything. So I've heard folks that have said that they want to move, but I don't know that move is necessarily the right move and everything, no matter which way the political pendulum swings. So I have heard folks that have talked about even going as close as Canada or as close as Mexico, but even that could be not the greatest decision depending on how you feel about those countries. I, for one, don't speak French, so I'd be kind of lost in Canada.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, plus they put gravy on everything up there. It's just not good. Yeah, I agree with you. I prefer that everybody stay here and we try to come together and work it out. And it doesn't have to be my solution. I'm not tied to it. I have no, ownership or anything of anything. I just want something to be done. And and I want it to be positive. It doesn't have to be my idea. It just needs to be something. And I think we need to stop pointing the finger at each other, stop trying to fix the blame, start to fix the problem, and start treating each other like adults and people, for God's sakes, rather than schoolyard stuff.
It's interesting you use the schoolyard parallel because oftentimes I do find folks have that mentality like they were back in the schoolrooms and everything. And like I said, you've got teachers in your life. You've been a teacher and everything. And sometimes this whole thing does remind me of the schoolyard with the kid that grabs the ball and runs away with the ball because he wasn't winning his game and things of that nature. So I'm sure that as you've reflected in as a retiree now, that you're probably like, I've seen this picture before, but it was 2 third graders or 2 seventh graders, whatever grade you taught was, and it was the same principles that we're seeing played out on the national front.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. Absolutely true. Yeah, unfortunately. So I don't know. I still have faith. I still have hope. I just don't know exactly where we're going to go. Again, I hope that someone's going to stand up and say, okay, enough is enough. Whatever, the decision is a decision. Let's get on board. Let's all grab the rope and start pulling together. So I hope that's where we end up.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm so hopeful. Like I say, I do know people who aren't that hopeful, but I tend to try to be anyway. So we'll see. I hope so.
That makes a lot of sense, and I do appreciate you being on and everything. So I know you probably got to get ready to get off, and we're getting ready to put on some PSAs and everything. But definitely, like I told you before, when I saw that on the ESPN show and knew that you had this seems to be a very simple solution, I knew that I wanted to bring you on to talk about it and to share your thoughts to our audience and everything. So before I get Dean to put on some of the spots, and I might have one other guest that'll be calling in a little bit as well, but before I do all of that, if there's any final thoughts that you want to share, this is your opportunity to do that and to share any final thoughts that you want to give to folks. And you can even give out a shout out to Ernie and the rest of the crew, but if there's anything that you want to share in your messages, this is definitely your opportunity to do that. And know that you're always welcome back. We have these dialogues on a regular basis, and I would love to have you come back on. And who knows, maybe you'll come back on and tell us that somebody came around and heard your proposal on our show and is ready to make it a national campaign. So hopefully that will happen. But definitely, if there's any final thoughts that you would like to share about yourself, about what you've been involved in and things of that nature, this is a chance for you to do that.
Well, I appreciate that. First, let me thank you guys for having me on, because this has just been a wonderful experience. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate Ernie. I told him that for reading it and talking about it. And I had a Trump, I don't mind saying this, I had a Trump campaign worker knock on my door the day after Ernie talked about this. And now this is a middle-aged black man, and the man knocked on my door, and we had a wonderful conversation because he said, "Did you write the part in the paper?" I go, "Yeah." He said, "Well, Ernie Johnson Jr. talked about this last night." I said, "He did?" He goes, "Yes." And we had a wonderful conversation about how I knew Ernie and how I came to write the column. And I just so enjoyed that. And I mean, here we are, two entirely different people from entirely different backgrounds. He's knocking on doors for the Trump campaign, and we had a wonderful conversation. And then I got an email from Ernie later to tell me that he had actually talked about it. And I just said, wow, that's fantastic. But, what I would leave everybody with is, hey, we're all in this together. Be nice to each other. Try to help somebody. If you got a problem, put your cell phone down. Get away from the keyboard courage. Stop typing stuff and sending it to people. Go talk to somebody. if you got a problem, go talk to them face to face. You'll be surprised at how well the whole thing will go. And thank you guys so much. I so appreciate it. And again, let's hope something good comes out of it, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, and I definitely appreciate you joining us here on the conversation and everything. So definitely learn more about what Belton's got going on by going to that email that he gave us earlier and expressing your support. I definitely think it's a novel and great idea. And like I said, I definitely hope that you'll come back on in the near future to talk about how things are going in this whole plan of yours, because I think that it's a simple solution and something that we should be talking about on a regular basis, this notion of just respect and having respect for each other. So definitely great to have you on, Belton, and hope that you'll be back joining us on in the near future. And who knows, maybe you could kidnap Ernie and Charles, and you can even bring them on one of these calls as well, because we're always willing to have conversations, even with folks that we don't necessarily agree with. Because some of the things Charles says, I don't always agree with, but he's still a very talented person and a talented individual. But I can say the same thing about Shaq and some of the things that he says as well. But definitely don't always agree with everything that they say, but they seem to be level-headed and seem to be having at least some thought process to what they are trying to develop in their ideas. So I'll have to get you to reach out to them, and maybe we can get them to call as well. Because I don't think that Dean will have any problem if Mr. Barkley calls. So you have any problem if Mr. Barkley calls, Dean? Dean is not listening to me.
Well, he started listening to me probably.
I'm having a problem unmuting his mic, but I if he says something that I don't agree with, I tend to tune out on people when I don't necessarily agree with them. I don't spend too much time arguing points no more.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the world's gone lately. That's unfortunate. It doesn't help us any, but I understand that completely. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It has just been a blast, and I hope it comes off sounding good, because I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Right.
Glad to have you on and everything. So definitely glad to enjoy this conversation, and hope more people will learn about what you're doing. And Dean, if you would put on one of our spots and everything. And then I think I had one other person I'm going to reach out to and see if they're going to show up for the latter part of the conversation. If they don't show up, then we'll just banter ourselves and everything for another 30 minutes. But if you could put on one of our spots and everything, and then we'll go from there. I can also, when we come back, talk about some of the conversations that I had on our other shows that folks will be learning about when they catch us on our network. So, I had some great conversations with Walter Greason and a number of other great folks on those platforms. So depending on what goes on with these communications that I'm getting ready to have, I can talk about that as well. But if you will kindly put on a couple of spots for a few minutes, I will reach out to a couple of these folks and see if they are going to be making a return call. Otherwise, we'll talk for about 20 minutes or so and go from there. So if that's good with you, then we'll have a conversation with our spots right now. So, Dean, put on some of our spots.
All right, y'all are listening to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark.
Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. I start laundry at 8. At 10, we go for a walk. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers for advice, tips, and support. Together, let's help each other better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
So waiting for another one of the spots from Dean, but while that's going on and we're getting ready to line that up, I can talk about a couple of the other things that we've had in the sense of conversations and all of that, because we've definitely had some great guests that have been taking place on a regular basis, not just here, but on a number of other platforms as well. As you know, we are in allegiance with the folks at IBM.TV, and of course, I earlier did Mullins Music and things of memories of that show. So did that show earlier, and we had some great guests in that conversation, including a gentleman from Seattle, Washington, who is one of the founding members of that hemp festival that takes place in that region. So it was interesting talking to him and about how he has found a number of the things that he is involved in to be also tied into Black Lives Matter and a lot of the other social struggles that are going on in the world. So not just what he's doing in the sense of his things around hemp reform, but on a number of other issues as well. So definitely was good to have that conversation. And then, like I said, on that same show was Madison Ward, who is a friend of mine from the University of North Carolina, a student over there and a fellow media person. So I actually put her on the spot and had her do an interview with the filmmaker. So she was talking to Larry Sid, who is a filmmaker and is doing a film around reparations. So that was definitely a very engaging conversation. And, of course, we had Walter Greason, who is involved in urban planning and a number of other things in that regard. So definitely was some great conversations on that particular show, and we learned a lot of very powerful things in that conversation. So that was one of the conversations that we had earlier today, and then, of course, we've had some other shows as well. So there have been some great conversations that folks have been engaged in with what we're doing here on our various media platforms. So like I said, that came up in that conversation, talking about how that is going and the different things that folks are involved at in that regard. And then earlier in the afternoon on the radio show with Mark Lee, I had the pleasure of interviewing Ira David Wood, and he is, of course, Evan Rachel Wood, the famous Hollywood actress's dad, and he was talking about his involvement in the theater world and a number of other things. And then we had a gentleman who is involved in the world of finance, so involved in bookkeeping and financial things and all of that. So that was another great conversation that took place and that a lot of folks were engaged in and that they were finding very much interesting in the ways that they could stay engaged in what they were doing. So definitely enjoyed all of those conversations. The stories that Ira David Woods told were just truly amazing. So if you go to the website, once I put it to Dean's hand, and Dean can talk about the upload days of those shows, I think you will find some very humorous conversations, including about the time that he met a very famous actor and everything, and how he basically bum rushed him in order to meet him. And that was definitely an enjoyable and engaging conversation. And I know a lot of folks will be very much interested in that and how that played out. So I think a number of folks will be checking that out and be glad to learn about how that is going and what is happening in that regard. So definitely folks can go there, check that out, and learn more about how that transpired and his story in that regard. So definitely folks will learn a lot and will pay attention to a lot in that regard, and they will definitely find out how things are going and what they can do in their lives and when they are having the opportunity to meet folks like that. So definitely should be a great conversation, and I know a number of folks will be very much interested in learning about what that was all about and how that played out. So definitely I would love to hear folks' comments on their reflections on some of the guests we've had here on Straight Talk with Dean and Mark, and if they've got any comments that they would like to share with us as well. We're always willing to get other feedback and to hear from other guests also. So if you've got a guest in mind that you would like to be on the show, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. You can reach me at bluesradio at gmail.com. That's bluesradio at gmail.com. And, you know, I'm always watching things on the news and hearing what folks have got to say and scouring the different forms of media and things of that nature to find out if there are conversation points that folks might be interested in. So definitely, if you are one of those that has got a conversation that you would like to carry on, then don't hesitate to call. Like I said, the number here is 646-668-8393. That's 646-668-8393. So 646-668-8393. And, of course, we're always willing to talk to amazing guests and learn more and more about what they've got happening in their lives. So there are a number of ways that folks can become engaged in our conversation and learn more about what is going on in that respect. So definitely hoping that many of you will continue joining us here on a regular basis and engaging in these great conversations that we have on a consistent and regular basis. So definitely hoping more and more of you will join on these conversations and even add your insight as to what is going on in the world. So that's one of the things that I've got to say, and I'm going to bring in Dean to the conversation as well, and we'll talk a little bit longer. And I'm still trying to reach out to a couple of folks that may be calling in, but if they don't, then we'll just go with our usual flow and everything. So, Dean, if you're still on the line with me, I'd love to hear what you've got to say about this debate that's going to be coming up and what you're going to be watching for in the debate. Or are you even going to bother to watch the debate? Because I know I'm having mixed views about whether I'm even going to bother to watch the debate. As many folks have, I've already made up my mind as to who I'm going to vote for, even though, as Velton said, the choices might not have been that great, but sometimes not the greatest choice is better than no choice at all. And of course, we do know the importance of voting, so that's very much important for us to vote on a regular basis. So, Dean, what are your thoughts on the election, and are you going to even bother to go out there and watch the debate?
No, I never watched the debates. I don't. For me, that's like, I can promise you the world. I can tell you I'm going to do all of these things. But to me, just sitting there listening to somebody make all those promises, show me. And that's when it comes to stuff like that, for me, I'm a show me person. I really don't want the, cameras, and you make it sound good for the cameras, and, you say all of these things, and you're sitting there and y'all are trying to one-up each other and all of this stuff. And it's like, that's nice, but show me. Show me what you're going to do for me. A lot of people like to watch the debates. Man, I'd rather watch paint dry on the wall. That's just my personal preference. I've never been interested in it because it's like, you're begging for my vote, or you're not begging for my vote, or you're going to lie to somebody for something that fits you. All right. You're going to say something completely crazy that they're going to have in the news tomorrow. Let's get to the vote. Let each person go in, and people spend a lot of time on social media mad with each other because you don't like their candidate, or, and I'm like, but you're the only person that's going to be in the booth by yourself. So we don't know if you're really voting for who you sent. To be honest, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter, because each person is going to go in and they're going to, cast their vote for who they want to see as the president. We've been shown not once but twice, this is all symbolic. Even though we still do it, it's kind of symbolic. The Electoral College decides who will be our president. 4 years ago, 3 million more people said, hey, we'd rather see this person than this person. The Electoral College said, that's nice, but you're going to get this person. Deal with it. And now, to me, it's almost like, if you don't listen to the will of the people, the Electoral College has to be abolished. There's nothing you can tell me that makes the Electoral College beneficial. There's nothing you can tell me. Nothing. Because when it was created, yeah, the intent was for A, B, and C, you know. But now, what is its true intent? To pick who the electorate, the electors want to see as the president, without regard to what the people want. It happened with who was it? Al Gore, when George Bush, W. Bush became president, and it happened 4 years ago when they selected Orange Julius to be the president. And look at what you have now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, wow, that was a bad move.
Just a bad move altogether. I mean, like you said, we've had folks that they have asked to be in one system or another of being in charge, and then they just dismiss them. So, like I said, a lot of times this is what happens, right, and we just have to deal with it.
And that's, so it's like, all right, well, I kind of looked at the stuff, and I looked at who I'm deciding to vote for, not because of what somebody said. People will give you 1,000 reasons, like, oh, we got to get him out. Okay, why? Because he has to go. Why? Because he has to go. Well, you can't give me a reason. I don't like him anyway. Didn't vote for him last time. Won't vote for him this time. But that doesn't mean I'm automatically going to vote for Joe Biden either. You know what I mean? So people just assume, like, okay, well, you're going to give your vote away. Well, to be honest, nobody fucking asked you. And that's how that's how I want to tell some people, like, nobody asked you what you thought. We could give a damn about how you feel. When I go in there, is me doing what my civic duty is. I don't really care if you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And Belton brought up an interesting point. I'd love to hear your reflections on this and what he was talking about. But I know a lot of people are concerned about the whole concept of voting by mail and the Electoral College. So are you going to vote by mail? Are you worried about voting by mail? Do you think that it's something we should even consider, voting by mail?
I've been voting by mail for the last 20 years. And the reason I did that was because I went to the polling place one day and the individual sitting behind the desk told me my name was not on the roll. I'm looking at my name upside down, but you're telling me my name is not on the roll. So before we play this game right here, and I wasn't too kind about it, I'm not going to be like, well, let me see your supervisor. I just gave her the business, and when that supervisor came, I said, look at my ID and find my name. They found my name right there on the thing. I said, now I'm going in the booth and vote. And this is the last time I'm coming to a polling place because I'm not going to play this game with anybody. And at that point, I asked for a vote by mail ballot. I fill mine out maybe the end of September, so it didn't come this week, maybe coming later on this week or next week. I fill it out, I put my stamp on it, I send it back to the Board of Elections. So I've never had a problem with it. People who've never done it, yeah, it's something new, so there's a concern there. But when you start reporting that, oh, well, they're in the trash, well, you have to follow the directions that are on and I've watched people do this. They'll get the vote by mail ballot, and the first thing they do is rip that big flap off. You just invalidated your ballot. And it says on there, do not tear off this flap, but you didn't read it. So, you got to be careful as well. Don't just say, oh, well, they said they're throwing them in the trash. Well, shit, I said nobody got to pay taxes next year. Are you gonna not pay your taxes because I said it? So at some point, like, you can either go to the poll, and in the pandemic it might be a little rougher because who's going to wipe down those, who's honestly, they say, okay, we have social distancing, and the poll workers will wipe down the booth after every person goes in. Do you honestly believe that that's going to happen? You know what I mean? Or are you going to go ahead and vote? You hear a lot of people talking that trash. I don't care if it was a mass murderer with blood dripping off his hands, I'll still vote for him. All this crazy stuff. Sounds like, all right, well, I'm not going to vote by mail because they're not going to count it. Well, they count mine, so. And then folks want to, is there a follow-up? They ask good questions, but now I'm like, either you're going to go to the poll and vote, or you're going to vote by mail, or you're not going to vote at all. There's one or three options, so you got to pick one. Pick the one that's you're most comfortable with, and that's the only thing that I can say. I'm most comfortable with putting mine right in the mail, sending it, and then on election day I get to sleep in. You know what I mean? I really get a day off
right then and there.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about getting up, going to the poll, voting before it closes. I don't have to worry about all that stuff.
Makes a lot of sense. Don't have to worry about it at all. Don't be thinking about it in the least bit. You just leave it alone and just go from there. Yeah,
man. And that's the easiest thing you could do because you have to, if you're gonna do it, you have to pick what you're gonna do. Are you gonna vote or you're not gonna vote? Choice is up to you. People can get mad at you and say, oh, you're not this, you're not that, but the most they could do is give lip service. I haven't seen an individual yet to put their hands on another person because that person said that they're not voting for their candidate or not voting at all. So they can run their mouth like a lot of people do. But when it comes down to it, we still need to get rid of a problem that we have, and that's the Electoral College.
Definitely got to get rid of that Electoral College problem, that's for sure.
That's a problem for me. Like, that's a big problem. And it's like they won't do it. They won't get rid of it. Like, you don't understand. Well, shit, I don't have to understand. What I do understand is that these guys are deciding the fate of the whole country. And then we end up getting the short end of the stick. How does
exactly. Does not work at all. Does not make any sense in the least bit.
No, not at all. And we end up looking stupid. We end up looking stupid once again. You know what I mean? It's like, dang, man, we must be either like gluttons for punishment or something, because it's always some extra. Always some extra. I don't know, man. Some days are good days. Some days you just want to be left alone.
I know that's right. Some days you just going like, I just got to be left alone. Can't have enough of this at all.
No, because then you look at all the stuff and it's like, don't we like, I guess, put ourselves in situations where we end up looking a little.
What was that you were saying?
I said we put ourselves in situations where we look a little extra dumb, and we'll argue with people, and people have lost friendships, and people are, golly, what are you really going to do if he does, win the election? All right, well, I do hope some people move because they just, they've been saying it from the beginning. So be a person of your word and go ahead and move. We won't hold it against you. In fact, we'll be kind of glad that you're gone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You can go ahead and leave, and it's going to be all right. We're not going to hold it against you. We're not going to even be mad with you. It's more like, thank you for leaving. Now get out.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And more people need to have that kind of attitude where they're sitting there going, like, reflecting on how it's going to impact them directly and not necessarily how it's going to impact other folks or folks that they don't really have any say-so with. So like I said, I know a lot of folks are also concerned about what's going on in the world, whether it's their own personal economy or whether it's other forms of other people's economy. But at the end of the day, we got to also make sure that we elect folks that are going to be serving our interests on the local side. So I get the national picture. Right. I get that the national picture is important, but we've also got to pay attention to our local electoral politicians that oftentimes make decisions that are even more impactful on our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are you going? What are we really going to do, right?
Yeah, that's the key, is what are we really going to do and how we're going to make that happen and everything, because too often folks don't be thinking about that. They think about other things and other ways to have things go on in their lives, but we got to try to figure out other things and other methods that folks can do in order to make some positive changes.
We got to do something, because when it comes down to it, you know, we're the ones that are in our communities. We're the ones who have to make sure the next generation grows up and becomes responsible adult citizens. You know, the government's really not going to do all of that. In fact, I wonder sometimes if they really care or not. You know what I mean?
Well,
we do get some days are good days, some days are bad days, but it's us that's responsible for us. And those individuals who claim to have love for you, do they really have love for you? Or do they have love for what you can do for an individual, you know? So I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of things that folks have to reflect on and try to think about these important things and everything. And on a lighter note, because I know that you're not the biggest sports fan when it comes to basketball, you're more of a football kind of guy. But have you decided whether the Lakers can pull it off, or are you writing them off? I mean, not writing them off, but writing them that winning ticket already and that Miami cannot pull it off. So what are your thoughts on the NBA Finals, and do you think that it's just a matter of them going through the motions, but the Lakers winning? So what are your thoughts, or might we get a surprise in this playoffs?
Oh, I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm a football guy. Like, for basketball, whoever wins, congratulations. You know, there's a lot of people that don't want to see, you know, LeBron James win certain another title or anything like that. But to me, you know, that man has been in the league, 18 years? And you haven't heard, like, he hasn't done any of the dumb stuff. He plays ball, but he's also opened up a school. He's also done community service, and you know, he's not out there just running around cheating on his wife and making up excuses as to why he did it or anything like that. So I can't be mad at the man because he has a talent that I know I wouldn't be able to do it. You know what I mean? I know I wasn't blessed with that talent. So congratulations to them if they win, or if someone else wins, then hey.
We'll find out how it plays out and who wins what, or whether it even transpires that way. So it ought to be interesting to see what goes on that way. I know that I looked and I think I saw flash across my screen that your Ravens are about ready to start their game if they haven't already started it. So, you know, I'll be paying close attention to that game since I do not want to be 0-3 in fantasy football, and I need them to do some correct things in order for it to be a positive in my mind. So, like I said, I will be watching very closely just to make sure that I do not fall in that 0-3 hole, because I know I had a friend of mine that is facing that hole, and I think they're actually going to be in it on a Twitter thread, and they were telling me that they are 0-3 and are wondering if anybody can come back from 0-3. And like I told them, nothing is impossible, but that makes it real difficult when you're 0-3, and particularly when we don't know how long the season is going to go in the first place. So that even makes it even harder because, they could pull the plug in like week 10 or week 12. So like I said, hopefully it'll be a complete season, but 0-3 is not an easy hole to get out of no matter what sport or game you're playing. So it'll be interesting to see, and I know that I'm going to be watching with intent. And actually it looks like the game is going on, and right now your Ravens are not winning, so that's not a good thing. They are down 6-3. So they are down to, but I am winning still because the defense is not allowing a lot of points. So I'm up by 50 points because your quarterback is not also getting a lot of points either. So right now it's doing good for me, even though it's not doing good for your Ravens. Because like I said, I see that y'all are down 6-3, but it looks like y'all have the ball, so that could change at any moment.
It's the first quarter. It'd be different if this was like the Eagles game yesterday and it was overtime. We're in the first quarter right now. We're down by 3 points. You know what I mean? So we got time. We got a whole football game.
You got a whole football game, a whole football team. Y'all got
game, man.
So you are not concerned yet. You are waiting to see how this plays out, and you are not overly worried, at least not at the moment. We'll see how things go and all of that. So we will definitely be paying close attention to what folks have to say about that and whether that goes on, because I know this is a pivotal game in the AFC and everything, because it is definitely a game that could impact the playoff picture one way or the other. So even though it's an early game, it still could be a pivotal game, but it's an early game. So even if y'all lose, y'all won't be too hurt because y'all have won, I think, what are y'all, 2-0 or 1-1?
We're 2-0. We're 2-0.
So, yeah.
And, I mean, like I said, it's a whole – and we still got a season. So, I mean, you lose a game, you know what I mean? Now, for those teams that have lost, like, all 3 games, because this is the Monday night game. So, you have some that's like 2 losses and a tie or 3 losses. Yeah, they got to start really getting stuff together. But right now, hey, we're playing the defending Super Bowl champions. We're down by 3. We got 3 more quarters to rock. So we'll see what happens in those 3 quarters. And, anything can happen. It's football.
It is football, and anything can happen in football. And, it's because I have not really – I've been watching the scores, but I haven't really watching the games the way I was watching the basketball. That's actually where I stumbled across Belton and his letter and everything. But are they actually playing in front of crowds? Because, like I said, I've been catching glimpses, but I haven't noticed whether they've been whole crowds or not crowds. So are they actually attempting to play in front of crowds, or are these limited crowds, or are we doing virtual football?
No, it depends on where the stadium is. Some of them have had individuals out there. Some of them have limited, like family members only out there. Some of them have nobody out there except the staff. So depends on what they dictate. You know what I mean?
Depends on what state they're in and how they are being dictated in order how they can do it. So it depends on what the powers that be allow them to do. So definitely we know that is always the case in a number of situations, that it depends on what the states and the cities and other folks dictate can happen in these situations. Because we know that I actually saw that there was going to be a festival, and I think they got in trouble for it, but it was actually, I want to say, a Latin festival, and they got in trouble because they had, I think, a full crowd, and it was in like one of these rural towns in North Carolina, and I think that they got like a slap on the wrist or something like that. But yeah, folks are handling this pandemic in different ways, because I know when I saw that article and I saw that it was like a lot of folks out there, and it looked like it was a big crowd, I'm sitting there going like, aren't y'all the ones that'll be highly upset if y'all the ones that get sick or come down with some element of this illness and everything, and then y'all are sitting there in the hospital crying, talking about I shouldn't have gone to that concert or I shouldn't have gone to that festival, and the doctor's going to be looking at you like, I told y'all that. I told y'all not to go there, and y'all didn't listen. So sometimes folks just have to be stubborn in their own right and everything, because some folks just think that they know it all and that they have that kind of situation that they can just do whatever they feel like. And we know that isn't always the case. Sometimes you got to pull back and hear what folks have got to say before just doing whatever you feel like doing. So I'm sure that even you, Dean, go out and wear your mask when you go out to the store, and you probably also make sure that you're keeping socially distanced. And definitely, as I've said several times, you're always a big fan of washing your hands, and saying that we should have been doing that like when we almost came out of our mom's womb and everything. Well, maybe not that quite that early, but definitely in the early years.
Long time ago. You know, it is a law in New Jersey. So, you know, you can go out there and not wear your mask and try to, I'm going to do what I want to do, but you'll get the fine, or, you know. In fact, I don't really, right now with all the stuff going on, and it's about to be flu season, and people are already we went to a restaurant the other day just because of, you know, it was open. So we said, hey, let's go enjoy ourselves for a little bit. But even then, it was a dude in there just like coughing and hacking. And I'm like, man, come on. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my God.
So to come back to our guest, and I know we're going to wrap everything up and everything, it seems to me like when you went to that restaurant, you just wanted the same thing that he's asking for to be added to the pledge. You just wanted a little bit of respect. So you weren't asking for much. You were just asking for that person that was coughing and sneezing and not covering their mouth and doing the other things that they were supposed to be doing. You just wanted them to do what Velton is saying that he is urging to be added to the Pledge of Allegiance. You just wanted to have some respect added to the whole conversation.
I mean, if you want to call it respect, I call it just decency. Like, just, you knew better. You know what I mean? Man, you out here coughing up a lung and you want me to feel bad for you. You keep looking at me to see if I'm looking at you. No, I'm not looking at you, but if you cough one more time without covering your damn mouth, there will be no respect, because I'm going to try to kick you in your chest. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. You know, we already talk about germs and all this stuff, and you just out here just hacking and, you're a chump.
Just basic respect. That's all we're asking for. It's just some basic respect and all of that. Yep, that's all we need. We just need some basic respect and all of that. And speaking of basic respect, you know, we also need basic respect of the shows that we do. And, of course, we have a lot of great shows, so I want you to talk about that as well. But, you know, I also think that folks that are listening, and we know we've got folks listening all the time, so I'm actually going to put something out on the table for the first time ever, and I want Dean to do the same thing. But, you know, we are oftentimes doing these shows. We love doing the shows, and we love getting, you know, these amazing guests and everything. But, you know, we also need to get some support from our listener audience as well. So if you would like to make a donation, you can make it either to bluesradio@gmail.com. That's the PayPal that you can hit it, or you can hit Dean's PayPal as well. So actually, I gave the wrong one for me. My PayPal is emily@hti.org. So Dean, what's yours? What's your PayPal, and how can they reach you if they want to make donations to the cause? Because like I said, they can make it either to you or me. But if they want to make donations to the cause, how can they reach you, and how can they have that happen?
Well, they can actually send it to 807, the numbers 807 media, MEDIA @gmail.com. So that's the PayPal. It sends it there, and it'll be used so we can go ahead and keep bringing these shows to you. We greatly appreciate you in advance.
Definitely. We do appreciate the support of those that want to do that on a regular basis. We definitely do appreciate folks that want to give support any way that they can. So like I said, you heard from Dean that they can do that as well. And, of course, I also just recently got, and I think Dean has as well, but if they want to do it the old-fashioned Cash App way, they can do $Barkley62. Do you have a Cash App, Dean? And if so, what is that for the Squared Media folks?
No, they actually shut down my Cash App. And
well, and they will do that in a minute. So I understand how that works. They will shut it down in a minute if they see things that they do not understand or whatever. But any way that they can give that support, we definitely greatly appreciate it. So we will keep that in mind. Dean, it's already almost 9 o'clock and everything. So, and I'm lining up some other amazing guests for the next couple of weeks and everything. As a matter of fact, I'm going to look on the calendar because I think I've got one of our clients from Eris, who is a young lady out of Hawaii. I think she's got somebody calling in on next Monday. So I'm going to find out who that's going to be and all. But in the meantime, if you would talk about some of the other shows that we've got and all of that, then I will see who we've got. Yeah, we've got Dr. Funk coming on. So you remember Dr. Funk was on one of our shows in the past in terms of the IBM.TV shows, but Dr. Funk has been scheduled to be one of our guests on Straight Talk with Dean and Mark on the 5th of October. So we are definitely looking forward to a conversation with Dr. Funk about music, and of course he's over there on the West Coast involved in the music field, so hopefully he will be reaching out to us, and we'll have that conversation with Dr. Funk, and I'm still lining up some other guests as well, as there are always amazing folks that are doing amazing things throughout society. So, Dean, if you would tell folks about some of the other shows that we've got going on, and then, of course, they can definitely join us next week when they'll have Dr. Funk and who knows who else I might pull out of the rabbit's hat.
All right, well, you know what, y'all? It's Straight Talk with Dean and Mark, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Blog Talk Radio. Don't forget to catch the replays tomorrow afternoon and Wednesday afternoon, both at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Skyhawk Radio Network based out of North Carolina. If you missed those, then we got replays on Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Podfollow, and right here on Blog Talk Radio. We're part of the Level Radio Network. We have a bunch of shows, including Virginia Interfaith Live, the Plant a Good Seed podcast with Tish Oakley, the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause, Funk Music with Zach, Let's K-12 Better, She's on Call, Mona Shake and Minority Reports, the Chef Gang Podcast, Mullings, Music and Memories with Mark Lee, Funk from the Front Seat, the Online Dinner Party with Mark Lee, the Spin It Social Hour, the Just Podcast, WNC Original Music, and the Mark Lee Show. Like I always say, when you walk outside your front door, it's showtime in the world at your stage. Just make sure that people are not watching the rehearsal. With that being said, it's the 6-man Dean Geronimo. Have an outstanding week. See y'all in 7 days.
Sounds great. We'll be having another great conversation in 7 days. In the meantime, I'm going to be keeping track of this football game with Dean's team, the Baltimore Ravens, which today is my team because I need them to do some great things in this game because right now they are down by 3, but they are still maintaining a lead for me right now. So right now it's the second quarter. They're down. It looks like this is going to be a high-scoring game, but right now I am still up by about 50 points or everything, so I just need them to keep doing stuff. If Lamar Jackson decides he wants to throw any passes, please throw them to Marquise Brown. I need you to throw them to Marquise Brown, nobody else, just throw them to Marquise Brown. I'm being very blatant and very honest about what I need in this contest. So, like I said, Lamar Jackson, if for some chance, for some weird reason you're listening to this, just remember, throw the pass to Marquise Brown. And Baltimore Ravens defense, get lots of sacks. Lots of them. So on that note, we will definitely bounce out of here, and I will tell. Hopefully next week when I talk to Dean, I'll probably talk to him before then. But next week when I talk to him here on this platform, I'll be able to tell him that I'm not 0-3, but I'm 1-2. And trying to become 2-2, because hopefully next week this time I could be heading toward at least a 500 and at least having a decent shot. Because y'all remember I finished in the top 4 last year, finished in a solid 3rd place and got a little bit of money. But this is not the way that I wanted to start. But I think I started off rough one of them years that I did well also. So I know that you can bounce back, like Dean said, from any kind of negativity. So you can bounce back, but I just need my folks to do well. So Dean, go over there, watch that game of yours, and just remember to yell a lot at Lamar Jackson to throw to Marquise Brown, and for the defense to get lots and lots of sacks. And I wouldn't mind if they get like a run back in the sense of like a run back touchdown. So just remember to yell that all night long.
You just missed that. Devin DuVernay had a 93-yard kick return, man. So Kansas City is back on offense. Still down by 3, but it's 13-10. So we got a whole game, man.
Got a whole game to go, and I'll be keeping my eyes on that. I know that you are an avid Baltimore Ravens fan, so I know you will definitely be having your game on this as well. And then, like I said, I will be watching, and I'm going to be rooting for the impossible in the basketball field because, like I said, there are 2 Marquette players, one a little bit older than the other, but Jimmy Butler and Jay Crowder both attended Marquette. So even though it is an uphill fight, I think everybody from Vegas on down does not think it's going to happen, but they know that they've got at least one person rooting for the impossible over here in Durham, North Carolina. So we're going to see if they can give me some Marquette love and maybe pull off a surprise victory, maybe a 7-game series, or maybe they'll just pull it off in 5 or 6, but surprise the nation and the world. And, you know, I might be rooting for a lot of impossible things because I'm also rooting for the Brewers, the number 8 seed, to beat the mighty Dodgers. So, like I said, a lot of these might not happen, but, hey, one can always hope.
That's true. That's true.
And on that note, we're going to call it an evening. We've talked about sports. We've talked about elections. We've talked about a number of great things. And I was glad to have Velton Hodges join us. And like I said, there's no telling what we might be watching. Dean might call me up one day and be like, hey, Mark, I just saw that so-and-so said such and such. Do you think we should reach out to him? And y'all know me, I will go out there and reach him. So, like I said, I heard Ernie make that comment about Velton Hodges' letter to the editor. So I reached out to Velton and said, hey, Velton, we got a show. Would you like to come on and talk about it? So, as you know, we are always out there scanning the world, seeing what's happening, and there's no telling when you might get a call or a letter, either from myself or Dean Geronimo saying, hey, we think you've got something to say. Come on over and talk to us and see a platform that we've got that we can have you share your message with the world. So we are definitely throughout the world in all 50 states and several countries. I think that we might be, because of our partnership with IBM.TV, up to like 200 countries. So we are definitely being a global community, and we definitely can help you get your word out as well. So don't be surprised, right, Dean, if they get a letter from either you or me saying, come on to the show. We would love to hear from you.
That's true.
And on that note, we're out of here.
Peace.